This is Bookmarks with Richard Gadds.
Hello again, Richard Gadds here. With me today is Jayne Chard, who's the author of a new cozy crime series which begins with More Than Murder. Hello, Jayne. Tell us all about the book.
Hi, Richard. Well, I'll try and keep it short. It's basically about two estranged sisters who come together to go on a murder mystery weekend. So, returning to the village of Little Clarston to claim her half of Rose Cottage, Frankie is met with a chilly reception from her estranged half-sister Julia, who still nurtures an old grievance. Now, they hope to mend their fractured relationship by taking part in a murder mystery weekend at a Somerset mansion. But the playful intrigue turns deadly when they stumble across a real corpse. With a killer on the loose, a body that vanishes without trace, and trust in short supply, Frankie and Julia must set aside their differences to uncover the truth.
Right. So this is going to be the first of a series then?
Yes, it's the first in a series of books, which are going to feature Julia and Frankie, our two retired sisters, going over various parts of the country and trying to solve it. A bit like Murder, She Wrote meets kind of Midsummer Murders.
Oh, right.
That's the kind of idea. I mean, Murder, She Wrote was one of the most successful television series ever. I don't really remember that, with Angela Lansbury.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very much like that, really, only a sort of modern slant on it. So yes, I'm in the process of sort of finishing the second book in the series, which is going to be called The Body That Floats, and that's going to be coming out next spring.
Right. Now, your background is pretty illustrious. You had a long career in TV and theatre and film. Tell us all about that.
How long have you got?
Oh, right.
30 minutes.
Oh, fine, carry on.
So I started out in my professional career as a theatre director, and I directed shows at the Royal Court in London and Soho Poly, and I became the artistic director of Common Stock Theatre Company, which at that time had I think we had about 6 permanent actors, a musician, and myself, an administrator. And all the plays were developed through the improvisation process. So I had come in, I wanted to kind of experiment a bit. So I was using a lot of techniques by a guy who wrote a book called Impro, by Clive Baker, I think his name is. And it's all about how you keep improvisations going, and it's about accepting and not rejecting everything that's said to you. So if I said to you, Richard, there's a fire in your studio, you wouldn't say, no, there isn't. You say, oh, yes, there is. And, straight enough, this green man has appeared at the door. Yeah. So it would mean that you would develop the narrative. And then so we'd workshop those ideas. And then we would we work with a writer to sort of create a show from that, basically. And that would then tour. So that was an amazing experience of working with a lot of writers and a lot of really great actors. And then I'd kind of done that for quite a while. And I thought, well, the reason I kind of came into this side of the business really was to learn about how to work with actors. And now I think I've sort of done that. I think I'll move on and try and get into TV, which I started out doing documentaries, actually. I was making a lot of documentaries for Channel 4, and they were all quite heavy. So they were all sort of about, civil rights for people with learning difficulties and the abuse of people with disabilities and all this, and a lot of HIV and AIDS films. Yeah. And after about, I don't know, sort of 6 or 7 years of that, I just felt very depressed, really.
No.
And thought, oh God, actually, I don't think I can do this anymore. It's really, really hard. I had made a couple of sort of lighter documents. I made one about Terry Williams, who's the drummer with who was a drummer with Dire Straits. I made that for BBC Wales, and I made the first Women in Music Festival, which was actually called the Chard Women in Music Festival, because it was actually in Chard, but everybody thought that it was mine. But
right.
So, and at the same time, for a few years prior to that, I had I'd been managing a women's band, a 10-piece women's band called Meet Your Feet, which did quite well in Bristol and had an album and a single, and we did some touring in Europe as well. So that was all quite a lot of fun. And for the first time, I think ever, everything kind of came together when we were filming the festival, because if it were playing at it. So I was there as a manager and as the kind of director at the same time, which was quite fun. And I think then I really started to try to focus on drama, which is very difficult to get into. I mean, it has always been very difficult. It's notoriously difficult to get into. And I managed to get myself a very good agent at that time, and we were sort of knocking on the doors and everything, but not really getting that far. And then I did get a break, and I got to direct up in Lime Studios in Liverpool with Phil Redmond's gang, which was doing sort of Hollyoaks and the end of Brookside and Hollyoaks and the beginning, well, middle sort of Hollyoaks and Grange Hill. So I did that for a little while, but I think the difficulty was really that there weren't really any women directors at that time. And it was basically me and 17 blokes in the production office. Yeah. Which is, and it was very, very hard for women directors to get any further. And I found that I was like knocking on the glass ceiling, but I wasn't really getting any further. And so I thought, well, this is actually, I don't want to just do soaps for the rest of my life. So I kind of sort of packed it in really for a few years and went off and did, and bought a house in France, a farm in France actually, a sheep business, and did that up and sold that. And also all during this time, because right back in like 2005, something like that, I'd been on holiday to a remote island in the Gulf of Thailand called Koh Tao, where it was, very bad state for the animals out there. Particularly, they had a high population of dogs, which really weren't very well looked after at all. And so my friend and I, who were travelling with, and her young son, who's then 6 years old, we decided that we wanted to do something about this. So over a period of time, I think it took us about maybe 6 to 8 months to get the clinic up and running, and to do lots of events to raise money for it, and people on the island did events to raise money. And eventually, we had, I wouldn't call it a clinic, because most people probably wouldn't call it a clinic. It was basically, a house in the jungle in which we were boiling instruments in pots. We had volunteer vets. We had a vet from Poland originally, Beata, who was there for quite a while. And then when she left, I was organising a series of volunteer vets from all over the world, to come on shifts. Some would come for 2 weeks, some would come for 6 weeks, some would come for 2 months, and also veterinary nurses. So that was quite a massive challenge. But over time, it really began to work. And I wanted to do a neutering project on the island, because part of the problem, obviously, is, dogs keep reproducing and nobody's really looking after them. Yeah. So we did do a huge neutering project, which was quite amazing, actually. I think we had sort of 6 or 7 vets and quite a few volunteers, and we managed to get the mayor of the island on side, which was really helpful, because prior to that, their way of controlling the environment was to bring in the shooters and basically kill the dogs, which of course was not any use to anyone, because it didn't stop the population really. It was very inhumane. So by getting this neutering program off the ground, we really, did a huge job. I mean, the island itself is very small. It's only 15 kilometers wide. So unlike in other places where you couldn't really do this kind of project successfully, we were incredibly successful, and we were supported by the Wildlife Organisation for Protection of Animals, World Society for Protection of Animals, WISPR. And they actually made this, before we did the programme, we did a questionnaire around the island. And then after, when we finished it, we did another questionnaire. And then all these results were published by WISPR, and it became a blueprint for island dogs neutering, which was great, actually. And all these years later, which is like 20 years later, the veterinary clinics now you probably would recognise it as a veterinary clinic, but not quite up to the sort of UK standards, I would say. But it's still there, and we've got a fantastic Thai vet working there, and she's just amazing. She can just do anything basically. And I said to her a couple of years ago, I said, well, do you want, I can get you a vet here had offered me their computer program to put all the database for all the animals. I said, do you want me to get this for you? And we can set it up and you can use it. And she said, you looked at me in a really strange way. She said, like, why would I want that? I said, well, when a dog comes in, you can recognize which dog it is. They can tell you the name of the dog. And I said, well, no, I don't need that. She said, I know all dogs on this island. I know all of them. I don't need. And actually,
Wow.
you know what? She does. She does. And I think what's happened over these last 20 years is that the culture of the island has changed, and it's changed to people bringing their animals into the clinic because it's run in such a way that, if you can't afford to pay, you don't pay. And if you can afford to pay, you do pay. And it's really changed the kind of culture. But I think that's probably one of the most significant things I've ever done, I think, actually, But it's great because it's still there and it's still working. And so that was kind of carrying on throughout all that time. And then when I was out in France, I think it was, I got a phone call from somebody at what was then Southwest Screens, now Creative England, asking me if I would produce this short film, or come in and save this short film that was going off the rails a bit. So I thought, that sounds okay. So I went and did that, and that was a film called I'll Tell You, which actually won an award in the Brief Encounters Festival for the Best of the West. And I thought, actually, you know what? I mean, I'd always produced as well as directed on the documentary side of things, but not in the drama side. And I thought this is actually quite interesting. So I sort of became interested in that. And then I was asked by Peter Nicholson if I would produce his first film, which is called Dartmoor Killing, which was a thriller set surprisingly in Dartmoor. And I thought, well, yeah, why not? Actually, go on. That should be quite fun, and it was good actually. It was really interesting. We were down in Dartmoor for a month, filming all over Dartmoor, and in a little cottage there, and that film did pretty well. I mean, it won the National Film Award Best Thriller. And it won a big award from Screen for the best premiere. We had this premiere outside. It's quite chilly, mind you, outside in Dartmoor, where we had a lot of people come to that, and the film was shown. So that was all good fun. And then following that, I'd had for quite a long time. I'd also, before I started on all the film route, I'd gone and done the MA in film at Bristol University, where we were taught by David Putnam, among other people. And it was there that I'd met who's now a great friend of mine, Joe Ahern. This was about, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, maybe, something like that. And I'm sure you know Joe from, he's done a lot of stuff on TV over the years, a lot of stuff. And we'd always been saying, we're going to do a film together, but we never got around to it. And so after I'd done Dartmoor, I thought this is quite a good time now, because I've got a bit of a track record as a feature film producer. So let's see if we can put something together. So we got together and did a script. He wrote a script called B&B, which is about two gay guys who return to a B&B that the year before they'd been kicked out and they weren't being allowed to share a double bed. And it was sort of based partly on Joe's own experience and partly on sort of what was happening very much at that time was, gay men in particular were being discriminated against. And, the very famous cake story where the baker wouldn't make the wedding cake for the gay couple and various things like that. Yeah. Anyway, we got Paul McGann and Tom, it was Tom Bateman's first film, and Sean Teal, and it was shot in Bristol, that one actually. And then that won about 14 awards at various different festivals and things. So it did pretty well. So I think after that, then I was in Cannes, and it was Caroline from Creative England who said to me, there's this guy, he's an Australian guy, said he's looking to do a co-pro with a British company, and he's looking for sort of things based in one location. I thought, well, that sounds quite interesting. And I'd been working with a young writer called Jordan Waller, who's very, very good, and I think extremely up and coming young writer at the moment. I'm sure we're going to see and hear a lot from him very soon. I know he's got some projects that are quite hot, as we say.
Yeah.
And so he and I developed a script which is called Two Heads Creek, which is kind of comedy horror, a bit sort of Shaun of the Dead like, but set
Right.
in Australia, about these twins who go back to a remote town in the outback of Australia in order to find their what they now realise is their real mother. They didn't realise they were adopted, and it's just mad, really. It's a kind of comedy horror mad thing. And we shot some of it in Bristol, and then we went out literally to the outback in Australia to shoot for about 6 weeks, and it was a town in which there were well, put it this way, there were more people in the crew than there were who lived in the town. I think it probably had about 20 people in it. It was very deserted
Yeah.
and literally falling down houses. One, and I'm going to use inverted commas, hotel,
Yeah.
which had a bar, and that was probably about it. And then we had to live in these miners' huts because they're like sort of very, very old-fashioned Butlins, prefabs. Which was quite interesting because they were tiny. And when I went into mine and I realised that there was the water just went out through a hole, the shower water just went out through a hole in the floor. I immediately got a very heavy few bottles of water and stuck it on top of the hole so the snakes wouldn't come up because
Oh,
it was
blimey.
yeah. And I mean, they were mad. They're strange because, the first day on set, you always have a health and safety kind of chat.
Mm.
And the health and safety Australian guy stood up and he said, well, I'm not going to do the accent because I'm terrible at accent. He said, well, the first thing I need to tell you is everything wants to eat you. So I said,
Oh,
great, thanks, guys, thanks. And he said, now, he pointed over this long grass. He said, don't go in that grass over there, and don't do this and don't do that and whatever. And he said, if you get bitten by a snake, lie down and keep very still.
oh God.
Great, great, great.
Oh,
So
God, that's my idea of a nightmare.
it was, and it was very, very hot as well. And
Yeah.
then so when I sit on set, I normally have like my monitor in front of me, and I have a chair and a monitor and stuff. And obviously it was so hot out there that I had some kind of shade as well. Anyway, I get to set the first day, and they sit me up in this grass, right? And I'm thinking like, guys, no, 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 no. This is Snake City, I'm not sitting here. So I said, oh, it's all right, it's all right. I said, it's not all right, you're gonna have to move it. So I think they got the idea that I wasn't really going to sit in this long grass. But one day, I mean, we did had to call snake handlers a couple of times to take snakes out of the sets.
Mm.
And there was one evening, I remember, we were doing a night shoot, and I got to the set. I was called to the set. Somebody called, I can't remember quite what happened. Anyway, I went down to the set, and there had been a snake sighting. So I said to the HR guy, I said, okay, so what's happened and where is the snake? And he said, well, it's all right, because the snake's over there. And I looked over there, and there was a parking bollard. So I said, but where's the snake? That's a parking bollard. He said, oh, no, the snake's underneath the bollard. I said, you are joking. He said, no, it's fine. I do it all the time. It's underneath the bollard. I said, well, look, I don't want the actors going anywhere near there. Send them round the other way. So then when we finished, this is now about, 4 o'clock in the morning or something, I said to him, I think we'd better go and look and see if that snake, what's happened, because this is a brown snake, and brown snakes are actually deadly.
Yeah.
It's not like they are deadly, besides which you're in the middle of the outback, you're not getting out anyway. So, of course, he lifts the bollard up, there's no snake.
Oh, God.
What? You are mad. And then there was another time, I remember I was on set, and we were shooting in the hotel, and the hotel had a balcony that overlooked the entrance. And the stunt that they were setting up for was this guy falling off the balcony.
Hmm.
And I was standing a little way away from the balcony, and suddenly, out of nowhere, like 5 gallons of blood get poured over the balcony onto all the steps. And it's like, well, there was no warning. Now nobody's cordoning it off. Nobody. It's like they're absolutely mad. They
Wow.
are just mad. And then then we also had, it's the time of the forest fires, so we got kind of a little bit concerned about the forest fires because they were starting to sort of surround us a bit, and people were starting to get a bit, spreading through the crew like wildfires. There were these sort of rumours about the fire, and I just kept saying, no, it's all fine, it's nowhere near us. And then the line producer and myself were going like, well, how would we get everybody out? because the only airport is like half an hour's drive away, and they only have planes that will take like 10 people. So we're stuffed really.
Yeah.
So we just sort of sat it out. Unfortunately, the wind blew the other way, so we were okay. But yeah, when it came to actually getting back to Melbourne, I was driving on my own all the way back. It's about a 6 hour drive, 6 or 7 hour drive from where we were. So I sort of made sure that I had, you know, two mobile phones with all the sat nav and everything. And of course, after about an hour, both mobile phones failed. So there I was with no map in the middle of the outback in Australia. Not really much idea where I was going to go. And also with the forest fires, you could feel that, you know, as you drove through these villages, they'd close your windows because of the fires.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know how I got back, Richard, actually, to be completely honest with you, because there's like one road. If you get on the wrong road, you're sort of stuffed, because that road probably goes on for like 100 miles and no turn-offs.
Yeah.
I just managed to, I don't know how, find my way back. The only company I had was this sort of teddy bear that the head of makeup had given to me, because she was a bit of an antique. She was a vintage bear, and she's a bit of a bear collector, and so am I. So she'd give me this vintage bear. But that didn't tell me. He didn't talk
I've
very much.
broken out in a cold sweat here.
I know, it was really scary. And I got into Melbourne and I thought, well, I've got no idea where the car hire company is. And this is after 6 hours of driving in, you know, a state of heightened tension.
Grief.
I thought, well, usually they're near the airport, aren't they? So I'll just head for the airport. So I kind of headed for the airport and parked in the car park there and thought for a few minutes. I just don't know. I thought, well, I've got no idea really. It's not at the airport. I don't know where it is. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just drive slowly out of the airport and take each road one at a time and have to see if I can see a sign. So I drove out of the airport and there was a sign to this particular place. I can't remember what kind of car, say Alamo or whatever it was. And so I managed to get back to the car hire place, but it was all quite hairy. When I got back to the airport, finally, I had a very large gin and tonic and a shower.
Not surprised.
I know, it was pretty scary. It
Oh,
was
dear.
pretty scary.
So
So that,
how did you get from there then to Silent Witness, which I know is something that you've produced for the
yes,
BBC?
yeah. Well, so once I'd done the three feature films, which are extremely time consuming and extremely unwell paid,
Yeah.
I decided that I couldn't survive if I was going to do any more of those. And I think I felt I'd kind of done enough. I'd had the experience. I'd won quite a few awards with different ones, and I just thought, you know, that's enough really. So I wanted to get into TV producing, which again is hard to do. It's not easy. And then a friend of mine was working on Casualty, and she said, "Oh, I just happened to overhear that they're looking for some producers, that they've got a bit of shortage of producers." So I wrote to who was then the series producer, Lucy, and just said, "Look, you know, live in Bristol, blah blah. I've done this, that, and the other. Can we have a chat?" So I went over to meet her, and we just absolutely hit it off like a house on fire. It's just one of those very lucky meetings. You know, you meet somebody, you just really like them, and she's such a lovely person, Lucy Rafferty, who's now with Michelle's company. So anyway, so we just really hit it off. And on my way back, she rang me and said, "Would you like to start next week?" So I said, "Yeah, okay." So I went to Casualty. I think my initial contract was sort of 6 months, and they kept on extending it, and eventually, this was before Two Heads Creek, I remember now, because they kept on extending it, and then I went away and I came back and did it again, and I think I did it about 3 separate, what we call blocks. So I did about, I don't know, 12, 14 episodes of that. And then when I was on my last lot, as it were, that's right, Lucy kept trying to persuade me to stay. And I eventually said, "Look, I can't stay any longer because I actually have to go to Australia and make this feature film." That's right, that was the order in which it was. So I'd done Casualty, did Two Heads Creek, came back, and I have a very good agent at United called Georgina Carrigan, who looks after all my TV stuff. And I got, I think it was the Sky, I did The Rising with Sky after that, which was shot up in Manchester. I did a couple of episodes of that. And then basically I got an interview for Silent Witness and I got it. I got the job.
Right.
So yeah, with the lovely Susie McIntosh, who's a
Yeah.
fantastic exec producer. Yeah, so that was, I mean, it all sounds easy, doesn't it, when you say it like that? But
Well,
actually,
yeah.
it's hard. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
There are so many people and so few jobs. It's very
Mm.
hard to get anything. And I
Because
think,
it's quite a stylish, quite a leap in style from something like Silent Witness to something like More Than Murder. I just wonder
um,
what attracted you to the cozy end of the market when it came to
well,
books.
yeah, I think the thing is, what happened really, I think, was that many years ago, my mother and I, who's sadly passed now, we used to go on a lot of trips, and one of our trips was to go to one of these murder evenings. I think it was in
Oh,
West
right.
Nightmare, and it was so awful, so awful. It was funny. And I just thought, God, this is hilarious. This is absolutely hilarious. And of course, in the theatre, all those years ago when I started out, you start out at the bottom, obviously, when you start as in any job. And I was doing I was looking after Agatha Christie's and those sort of things.
Mhm.
And also sometimes we did, I think there was a show called Noises Off with Michael Frayn show, which is really
Oh, right.
hilarious.
Yeah, yeah.
And at that time, there's also the series of Michael Green's books called The Art of Course Acting, which are hysterical.
Oh, yes, I remember those. Yeah.
And, it's all just about, and I'm not saying that all amateur actors are bad, I just think there's something very funny about it. And I've met some very bad actors in my time, and it's actually very funny. So I sort of started thinking about, this is years ago, my mum kept saying to me, oh, that would be a great story, she'd write it, oh, yeah, yeah. And I think, because my mum died before I did Silent Witness, and I just had always promised her I'd write this story up. So I kind of felt, when I was offered to do another season, I felt, if I don't kind of do this now, I'm never going to do it.
Yeah.
And I just thought, and that was really, really hard turning
Yeah.
down. It's really hard because it's a fantastic show. They're a
Yeah.
great, great cast, great company. It's just great. I loved it. But I just sort of had this feeling that I just had to do this because I promised I would, and I just needed to do it now. But I didn't do it now. I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
So obviously, what came to mind was the murder mystery event that we went to,
Mm.
and I just thought, oh, that's quite fun. If I combine that with, it's actors doing the murder mystery play,
Mm.
and it's real people, so it's that mixture of, you don't know who's an actor and who's not an actor, because some of the people who are real are very, very over the top, and some of the people who are actors are very understated. So it could just be really funny. And so I think that's why I think I was attracted to doing that. And
Yeah.
then the characters of Julia and Frankie, they just sort of appeared in a way, because my mum had a lifelong friendship with a woman called Adele, who was, as my mum would describe her, quite a girl, and my
Mhm.
mum was quite reserved. And they used to go off and do mad things together, and I just thought, oh, that's quite interesting. And then I felt that it would be nice to set them around that sort of 60s, sort of retired, but still very active sort of
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
And so that's how I think it sort of evolved from there, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant. Jayne Chard, thank you very much for talking to us today. It's absolutely fascinating. What a career you've had. Um, the very best of luck with the book.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Bookmarks with Richard Gads. For more, visit www.richardgads.co.uk.